Hello everybody. Thank you for joining the Citrix Ready webinar session today. On behalf of our Citrix Ready partner ControlUp, it's a pleasure to welcome you all to the webinar. My name is Divya and I run the marketing activities for the Citrix Ready program. I will be your host today for this hour-long webinar. Please note that we will be recording the webinar and we will make sure that the recording is available to you all after the session is over. If you have any questions during the course of the presentation, please post them in the questions window available on the GoToWebinar environment. We will allocate about 15 minutes after the presentation to take your questions. We will try to answer most of the questions in this session. However, if we miss your question, please send a note to citrixready@citrix.com and we will reply to your query. First of all, it's my pleasure to welcome our speaker for the day, Yoni Avital. Yoni is the co-founder and CTO of ControlUp and is a well-known virtualization expert in Israel. He has been working with Citrix products for more than 15 years and implemented dozens of large-scale VDI and RDS projects. In the last couple of years, he has utilized his vast experience in managing complex RDS and VDI enterprise environments to fulfill the vision of setting ControlUp as the new standard in VDI and RDS management. Before I turn the time over to Yoni, let me remind the audience that this webinar is brought to you by the Citrix Ready team. Next slide, please. Citrix Ready is the #1 source to evaluate verified partner products for customers who are making a purchasing decision. And all these verified and compatible solutions are showcased on the Citrix Ready Marketplace. This catalog, or the Citrix Ready Marketplace, is frequented by a huge visitor base, including Citrix customers, users, and our reseller community. I recommend you to explore this marketplace at www.citrix.com/ready. Let me also introduce ControlUp, who has been our Citrix Ready partner since 2011. ControlUp was established in 2009 by a team of IT experts who have been active in the field of server-based computing and system administration for more than a decade. With products which are used by thousands of companies around the world, ControlUp helps IT professionals efficiently manage, optimize, and improve IT systems performance in every industry. They are a Citrix Ready partner since 2011, as I already mentioned. So, with that introduction, Yoni, welcome. Let me turn the time over to you to take us through the webinar today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Divya. Hey everyone, this is Yoni here. Thanks, Divya, for the great introduction. So, hi everyone, welcome to the Citrix Ready ControlUp 4.1 webinar. We have, I think, a great agenda planned for this session. You can see it on screen right now. We'll start with a single slide mentioning some notes about ControlUp, where we're at right now. And then, as usual, I'll jump quickly to a live demo showing you the great new things we added both in 4.0 and in the recent 4.1 release, which has just been released 2 weeks ago. We'll do, I think, a very interesting deep dive into the hypervisor integration feature. We'll show you how we can troubleshoot complex I/O issues which affect the VDI or RDS environment. We'll then do a pretty interesting, I think, scenario about troubleshooting a slow logon to a XenServer with the new logon duration feature which was recently introduced. And toward the end of the demo, I'll show you the recently released ControlUp mobile app for the iPhone. We'll wrap up things with a quick preview of the next major release with some long-awaited features, and obviously end with a Q&A session. Now, as Divya mentioned, feel free to ask questions along the webinar. At any point, just type your question in the chat, and we'll obviously answer anything we can. So, a quick look of where we're at right now. As I just mentioned, our newest release, 4.1, was just is just out, right? It was released late in January 2015, so it's out there ready for everyone. And this is the version I'll show you in the during the live demo session. Our traction has been really great over the last few years. I'm really proud to say that lots and lots of Citrix enterprise customers and lots of admins are using ControlUp today to manage both Xen app and Xen desktop environments. And obviously we hold all the relevant Citrix certifications, whether that's the Citrix Ready partnership or the Citrix Ready certifications for both XenServer and the latest Xen desktop releases. Right, so as promised, we'll jump directly to the product demo. Okay, so hopefully the latency will not be too big of an issue today, but you should start seeing the ControlUp 4.1 console on screens right about now. So as mentioned, this is the latest 4.1 release, which is currently available for download to anyone. And I want to start with showing you an interesting use case, basically an I/O issue affecting a XenApp 6.5 farm. And using this use case, we'll explore the new hypervisor integration feature and the new I/O metrics we introduced in ControlUp 4.0. So let's start by drilling down into our demo XenApp 6.5 environment. So as you should see on screen right now, we're listing the existing XenApp 6.5 servers in our demo farm. You can see we have 6 servers in this farm. Some of them has some user sessions. The TSO1 server is the data collector. And what is pretty obvious right now is that we have a serious I/O issue on most of the servers here. You can see it both via the stress level column, and if we'll scroll right a bit, you can see some of the existing and some of the new metrics, which shows the disk rates, right? The disk reads and writes rates, and also the disk usage from the hypervisor standpoint. So I think this scenario should be quite familiar to anyone managing an RDS or VDI environment. We have a farm-wide issue affecting the overall performance of all the end users. Now, what we'll do in the next few minutes, I'm going to add the hypervisor infrastructure into ControlUp, and then we'll quickly explore some of the new columns and features, and using those features, we'll troubleshoot this issue. We'll try to figure out why we have such a high IOPS usage, why we have such a high disk queue length on our XenApp farm. So in order to add hypervisors into ControlUp, the only thing you need to do is click on the Add Hypervisors button, as I'm showing on screen right now. We currently support the 2 major virtualization platforms, obviously VMware ESXi and Citrix XenServer. From the VMware front, we support all VMware 5X versions, so that's 5.0, 5.1, 5.5. Hopefully we'll introduce support from vSphere 6 when it's out and ready for testing. On the XenServer front, we support all 6 versions, so 6.0, 6.1, 6.2, and the recently released, and great I should say, 6.5 versions. Adding the hypervisor connection is a really straightforward process. In the case of XenServer, I simply need to type the address of the web service to the relevant pool master. So in my case, this is the IP address. This is the IP address of the pool master in my environment. The name of the hypervisor connection will be populated automatically based on the XenServer pool name, and I do need to configure credentials. In my case, the credentials are already configured. I'm using the root server account. You can also use Active Directory accounts if you configured AD integration in your XenServer environment. So once I click on OK, what happens in the background, ControlUp connects via remote API to the XenServer web service and simply adds the hypervisor infrastructure under the hypervisor section here. And the same exact process also works for VMware. So you just need to point ControlUp to the relevant vSphere vCenter server, type in the relevant credentials, and that's it. ControlUp will start gathering data from the virtualization infrastructure and display it in all the new views. Right, so now once we added the relevant hypervisor connections, we can see the new host view. This is the view you're seeing right now. So this view will show you all the virtualization servers, all the physical servers running ESXi or XenServer in your environment. And as usual, we have 2 types of metrics. We have configuration metrics, in this case, the hypervisor version, the number of cores installed, how much memory is installed, and obviously real-time performance metrics. And this is, again, as usual, quite extensive. We have the stress level column, which shows you immediately what's the current health of each hypervisor or each host. And in addition, we have real-time CPU, memory, and lots of I/O metrics, right? So we can see the IOPS usage in real time, we can see the latency, we can see network usage, basically anything a Citrix admin needs in order to figure out what's the current health of the virtualization host hosting his XenApp or XenDesktop farm or sites. One cool feature here, by the way, is the virtual CPU to physical CPU ratio. This is actually an idea we got from Sean Bass, who is part of our advisory board. And he said that lots of times admins are over-committing CPU cores to their virtual environment. So we figure out, I think, a pretty easy way to expose that. And this column actually shows you the rate between configured virtual CPUs running on all the virtual machines compared to the physical number of cores on the host. So based on our experience and based on what VMware and Citrix is saying, anything above 10, if the ratio is above 10, then you're probably overcommitting virtual CPUs. So this is a great way to quickly see what's your overcommit status on your farms. So we have seen some of the metrics we can see in this new view. Obviously, we can always drill down and see what's going on below that, right? So I can choose, in this case, a specific XenServer host. Let's choose Xen02. And when I'll double-click this host, what will actually happen, we will drill down into the virtual host itself, and we will see a list of VMs currently running on that host. Now, in this case, we can see we have 7 VMs running. Some of them are XenApp servers, some of them are management servers like provisioning or data collectors. And as usual, we can see metrics for the VM there. Now, specifically here in this screen, all the computer-based metrics are actually coming from the virtualization infrastructure, right? So host CPU usage, CPU ready, how much physical memory is used, all of this data is coming from the virtualization layer itself. Now, a new feature we introduced here is what we call column presets. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to click on the small arrow located just under the columns button. And you can see we have quite a few column presets available. Now, this feature enables me to quickly switch column sets based on the issue I'm currently troubleshooting. Right? So if I'm dealing with a XenApp environment, I can quickly select the Citrix XenApp preset to see XenApp related metrics. If I'm currently troubleshooting an I/O issue, I can choose the detail view I/O, and it will show me all relevant I/O metrics available both from the ControlUp agent point of view, so basically the Windows guest point of view, and also from the virtualization infrastructure point of view. And let me show you how it looks like. So let's again focus on the XenOps 6.5 farm where we have the I/O issue. And I'll switch to the detailed view I/O preset. Okay, so once this preset is available and selected, you can see that we can see again the same XenApp servers we saw at the beginning, but this time we're seeing all the relevant I/O metrics we can provide. This includes, again, both agent-based metrics, like disk reads and disk writes time, which are actually the IOPS usage from the Windows standpoint. And we can see, for example, the virtual read IOPS and virtual write IOPS, which are the IOPS usage from the, in this case, the ES6i host standpoint. Now, you might notice that in this case we're seeing something pretty interesting. We see that from the Windows point of view, IOPS usage is really high, right? We see on some machines here IOPS usage which goes up even to 20,000 IOPS per VM. But on the virtual read IOPS or write IOPS metrics coming from the ES6 host, we see 0 IOPS. Now, there is actually a good explanation for that. All servers are actually virtualized and are using the Citrix provisioning technology, and we're actually utilizing the new write cache in RAM option, which is one of the greatest features I think Citrix released in the last 2 years. And what you see here is a great proof of the validity of these features, because what we see here, we see that Windows is using a really high number of IOPS, but nothing actually hits the data store. In this case, a NetApp data store. So ControlUp obviously shows us in real time what's going on, but also in this specific case proves the validity and relevancy of the new PVS write cache in RAM option. Right. So these are some of the new presets, new metrics we introduced in v4. Now let's move on and see if we can troubleshoot this issue, see what's actually causing such a high IOPS usage. So the next step would be to click on the executables view. Right, so we'll click on that. And this view actually shows me all applications running on my farms. So this is an aggregated view. It will show us a single line for each app. This could be Outlook, this could be a browser, this could be basically any user mode or any system agent application running on your farms. Right, and for each app we can see statistics like how many processes are running right now for that app, what's the overall memory usage, what's the average CPU usage for each app. And starting with v4, we can actually show you the overall I/O usage for each app running on your environment. So if you think about it, you can actually go to the executables view, sort it based on I/O usage, and that way quickly see which applications or which system agents consume the highest amount of I/O in your environment. Now, in this case, again, we're troubleshooting an I/O issue, and it's pretty clear that this app here, Dynamo.exe, is the one app consuming, well, I would say most of the IOPS currently being generated in my system. You can see here that this specific app, which is currently running on 6 servers, consume in overall something like 160,000 IOPS, which is pretty crazy. The next step would be to actually drill down, to double-click that specific app, to see the actual instances. So once we do that, we can see the 6 instances which actually run on my XenServer servers, and on one other server we currently have no idea about. And we can see again the I/O usage in real time. So we're halfway there. We figure out which app is causing the I/O issue. Now we need to figure out who is running this and why. What's actually the scenario behind that. So we have quite a lot of data about processes. You can see here I/O usage in real time, memory, CPU. And one other interesting metric we can show you regarding processes is the command line. So I'm scrolling right to show you the command line for each Dynamo.exe process. And one interesting thing you can see here, that all the processes running here in the command line are actually referencing the same server, right? CURDSH01. Okay, so we have here an interesting clue, I think. We see that probably a single server, and that would be CURDSH01, is the server managing these specific processes. Okay, so the next step in my investigation would be to go to the sessions view and see which user is actually logged on to CURDSH01, and we want to see what he's doing, what's causing the I/O issue. So I'll go ahead and click on the sessions view, which is a flat list of all user sessions running in your environment, right? This will include any users running on XenApp and desktop files you're managing with ControlUp. By the way, one thing I want to note is that in reality, ControlUp is super fast and snappy. I would blame all the latency here on the GoToMeeting, but we're with Citrix, so forget that, right? But again, I can really assure you that ControlUp runs super fast in your own environment. Right, so we are in the sessions view. Now, a cool thing we added here, by default, if you search the sessions list, you can only search for usernames. So if I click here, for example, on, I don't know, EK, then this list will be filtered to show me only users containing the string EK. But in our case, if you remember, we actually want to see anyone logged on to CURDSH01. So if you notice this small error here, we can switch to all fields mode, which is internally we call this super search. And once I switch to that mode, I can actually type any string here, and it will be searched on all possible columns, including the computer column. So let's type CURDSH01. So that's it. We can now see that we have a single session. It's the admin in this case, running on the server we suspect. Now the next step would be to basically see what the user is doing right now. So we can drill down into the session. We can see the processes this user is running right now. And for some of you, the process list might look familiar and might make sense, and you can probably figure out what's going on here. But some of us are not familiar with all the process names, and the next, and hopefully the final step in the investigation would be to get the session screenshot. Right? So we'll right-click this session, and we'll use the Get Session Screenshot feature to see what the user is doing right now, what might be causing the I/O issue on the entire farm. So by launching this feature, we're actually getting a real-time screenshot, and we can see what the user is up to. So hopefully you're already seeing the end user screen right now. And that's it, right? What we see here, that an admin running on CRSH1 is actually running an I/O meter. This is an I/O stress test utility. And luckily enough, this test is called XenServer 6.5 stress test. Right, so the whole story here is quite obvious right now. Someone, during the middle of the workday, for some reason, initiated an I/O stress test on my XenServer 6.5 production farm. So, right, we can say case closed, we figure out what's going on. Well, not yet. One final step. ControlUp is not only a monitoring solution, as some of you might know. We can actually run actions from the same interface. So in this case, now I know that this is not a critical app. I know that this is actually a rogue admin running an I/O stress test in the middle of the day. And I'll simply go ahead and I will terminate, using the kill process session action, I will terminate I/O meter. And hopefully this will solve the I/O issue. So you can see we have a few options to terminate the process. I will use my favorite, kill process. And in something like a few seconds, the process should be terminated. And hopefully the I/O issue should be resolved. So to verify that, we'll go back to the XenServer 6.5 view. And we can switch to the detailed I/O preset. And right, so what we can see here right now, first, the disk queue already dropped to 0. The disk writes and disk writes metrics, you can see that they are starting to, well, actually all of them already dropped to 0. And basically we can say case closed. In a few seconds, the stress level will also drop, and we can actually see in real time that we solved the I/O issue. All right, so one last note before we move on. To some of you who might not be familiar with the stress level column, this is actually a health index for any object being managed with ControlUp. So we have stress level for hosts, for servers, for sessions, for processes, and we can always click on the stress level cell itself and then click on the small triangle to see exactly which metrics are currently contributing to the overall stress level. So hopefully you can see that the stress level is dropping right now, I/O usage is down to 0, and hopefully we have a bunch of happy users running on the XenServer farm right now. Okay, so this was a fairly quick introduction of the new host view, the new hypervisor integration features, some of the I/O metrics we added. If you have any questions on the virtualization support, on the new I/O metrics, then by all means just use the chat window to ask them away. Okay, I want to move forward to the next next item in the live demo presentation. So new in 4.1, this is actually the first time we'll introduce support for end user experience monitoring. This is, for me, this is the most exciting feature we added in the last version, and I think it's great because it provides both real value for Citrix admins, but maybe in a higher extent, it also provides value directly for the end users themselves. right? Because the ability to monitor logon duration and the ability to optimize it will enable you guys to enhance the end user experience for your end users, which is ultimately one of the most important things we do as Citrix admins. So what I want to show you now, I want to show you quickly how the new logon duration monitoring feature works. I want to show you some of the columns and some tricks we can do via ControlUp to figure out why logons are slow and how we can fix that. Right, so first we'll go back to the sessions view. Now, as you should notice on my screen, we actually introduced 5 new columns which relates to the logon duration feature. We have the logon duration itself, which is the overall time it took users to either launch a published desktop until the desktop is actually available for the end users. In the case of published app, we monitor the entire logon duration process until the published application is actually launched. And besides the logon duration column itself, we have the drill down columns, the profile load time, group policy load time, the shell initialization, and all the other components that are part of the sequence. So what I want to do, I want to show you an actual logon session. I want to time it from the end user's perspective, and then I want to show you the accuracy of the ControlUp logon duration feature and how we can use it to troubleshoot a slow logon. So let me quickly switch to the web interface page. Okay, so what I'll do now, I'm going to simulate a simple user logging on to a published desktop. And we're going to time it from the end user perspective to measure how long it took for the logon sequence to load. Okay, so let's launch the Citrix desktop. And we'll start measuring the logon duration sequence. Now, you notice that I started measuring the logon sequence from the moment the session was actually established. And that's because we start monitoring logon duration from the moment the session is actually authenticated on the backend XenServer or XenDesktop virtual desktop. So you can see we have a pretty long logon here. We have quite a long time processing group policy. We are now initializing the what's called the user init initialization. We're mapping drives, we're mapping printers. I'm going to stop my measurement as soon as the desktop is actually available for the end users. So right about now. Okay, so you can see that from the end user perspective, it took something like 45 seconds to initialize the entire desktop. Now, what we'll do, we're going to go back to the sessions view, and let's look on the specific session. Okay, so hopefully you can see now that I logged on with a user called CUdemo, and you can see that from the controller perspective, the logon took 44 seconds. So let me show you this again. Right, so from the end user perspective, this was 45 seconds. From our perspective, that was 44. And you know, in my world, that's close enough, right? That's really accurate. And I would say that in all cases we tested, and based on the initial customer feedback, this is really accurate in almost any scenario you can think of. Right, so first you get out of the box really accurate logon duration columns for your environments. Now let's move beyond that. If we look on the breakdown columns, we can see that profile load took 6 seconds, which is fairly quick. We can see that the desktop shell itself took 1 second to load, which is again pretty fast. And by the way, this is expected. I would say the only time you should see high desktop load time is when someone is actually using a new profile. And that's where the active setup phase is running, you know, where Windows is actually optimizing the IE settings and some initial settings. So in profile creation events, you should see a bit longer desktop load time. And logon duration other, this is interesting, this actually includes all other components which are part of the logon sequence, which are not included in either profile, group policy, or desktop initialization time. From our experience, it seems that the major two components currently that can make this section long are first third-party profile management solutions, anything like Citrix profile management or View Persona if you're using View. And the other thing is what we call user init initialization, which is basically where WF Shell and CM Start are running, and that's when Citrix are mapping their drives and printers. So for this specific user, we see that group policy took 18 seconds, which is fairly long. One thing we can do with ControlUp, if you want to delve into that and see some more details, we can actually right-click the user session and initiate a script-based actions. So before I actually show you the script-based action, just a quick introduction on this. We have built-in action in ControlUp. You can see some of them listed on screen right now. We can initiate a remote assistance and actually help the end user if he has an issue. We can get a session screenshot. You saw that in the beginning of the presentation. You can actually start a process in the session. We have quite a lot of built-in actions for sessions and even a longer list for computers and processes. Another thing which relates to management is a feature called script-based actions. Well, script-based actions is actually a feature that enables you as ControlUp admins to expand the built-in management library by importing your PowerShell or Vim scripts and actually configure them as built-in ControlUp actions. In this case, we wanted to allow end users to list which user-based group policy objects were processed during the logon phase. And that's why we created the list user GPOs. If you want to get this action to your library, it's a very simple procedure. Just click on the script-based action icon located on the home ribbon bar, like I'm showing right now. And once the script management screen is up, you should see the community action section. And you can then browse for specific actions. For example, if you type GPO, you can see the list user GPOs action. You can simply click on download. In your case, it will be a green download icon. Click on that, and in a matter of seconds, the list user GPO action will be available in your console. By the way, if you want to see the script which actually makes this action, you can simply switch to the Organizational Actions tab. Again, search for the specific script-based action, and just double-click on that. Once the script-based action item is open, just go to the script part, and you can see the actual PowerShell, VB, or Bash script which is running behind the actual action. Okay, so let me just quickly launch this specific script-based action on CU demo. So I'm running the list user GPOs, and in a matter of, I would say, like 20 or 30 seconds, we should see all group policy objects that were being processed in this specific logon. Now, while we wait for this, I think Divya might have some questions. So, Divya, if you have anything, just ask away.
Yeah. So hi, Yoni. Sorry, I was on mute. So we do have a couple of questions coming in from the participants, and let me just call them out. So there's one question where the participant is asking, how are the metrics from the hypervisors collected? Is an agent required?
Okay, so that's actually a great question. So the answer is no. We do not need any agents running, not on the host themselves and not on vCenter or XenServer. This is a completely agentless operation. The way it works is, as I mentioned in the beginning, you point ControlUp to the relevant web service. This could be web service running on the vCenter server, or this could be the web service running on each XenServer host. And once you configure that, then we access this web service remotely, and using remote API calls, we get all the data. So no agents are installed, and obviously it's not necessary to deploy anything on the virtualization infrastructure.
Okay, perfect. Another question is that in which of the 4 specific duration columns is the printer connection counted?
Okay, so in the log on duration other column, the printer connection is counted. This is more specifically, there is a phase called user init initialization. This is where it's happening after group policy has finished loading, and this is where Citrix is mapping the printer. So in the current release, you will see it as part of the log on duration other metric. In future releases, we're going to show this as a specific column, so it's easier to troubleshoot slow logons.
Okay, sounds good. So I think you will continue with the presentation, Yoni, and then the rest of the questions we will take it at the end. And I would also like the audience to know that some of the questions are already being answered in the chat window, so you could kind of see your messages right there. For the rest of those, we'll take it up at the end of Yoni's session.
Okay, great. Thanks, Divya. So as you can see, this user GPO script-based action is finished successfully, and the output is actually a list of all group policies that were being processed while this user logged on. It's a pretty long list in my environment. That's part of the reason why logon was so slow. Okay. One thing I want to note here is that we are going to release another script-based action. Hopefully next week, that will show you, in addition to which policy objects process, also show you how long it took for each policy action.
Hello, Yoni, let me just interrupt you for a second. There's some audio problem at your end and your voice is not very clear.
So, okay. Let me see if I can do something about that.
Yeah, it's still not clear.
Just a sec. Okay, hopefully I'm back.
Yep, it sounds much better. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. So you might have missed that, but what I was saying that in addition to the script-based action you're seeing on screen, we are going to release, hopefully next week, another script-based action that will show you how long it took for each group policy client-side extension to load. And that would be a great troubleshooting tool to figure out which GPO component is actually causing the slow logon. This could be the folder redirection client-side extension, this could be the GPP extension, and you will get that as part of this new script-based action. So stay tuned for our emails and blog section. Okay, so obviously we'll continue with the questions in a bit. I just want to show you one last new feature, and then we'll quickly discuss ControlUp 5, and we'll do a QA session. So the last feature I want to show you in this live demo is the new iOS app. Okay, so let me quickly show you what it's all about. So we have a feature in ControlUp called Incident Triggers. And this is a feature which enables you to basically configure rules which tell ControlUp what interesting events you want to capture. This could be whenever a host, a session, or a XenApp server or a Xen VM is crossing a stress level. This could be whenever a specific Windows event is created, when someone is opening an app. It's a pretty extensive feature. I recommend anyone interested in just seeing some of the blogs about that. But the point is that we can detect quite a lot of things happening in your environment. And we've seen some interesting use cases. For example, we have customers that use this feature to be notified whenever a specific app is crossing, is using more than 30% CPU. It's really granular. Now, the new feature we added in 4.1 is the ability to push a live alert directly to your smartphones. And I want to show you how it looks like. So we actually expanded the follow-up action section, and we included a new option called Send Mobile Push Notification. Now, once an incident trigger is configured, and it's using the new Send Mobile Push Notification follow-up action, then the moment ControlUp picks up that feature, picks up that incident, you will get a live, real-time alert directly to a new ControlUp native app running on your smartphone. And let me try and show you how that app looks like. Just a sec, sorry. Okay, we'll try one more time. Okay. Okay, so hopefully in a few seconds you guys will see my iPhone screen in the GoToMeeting session. So once the screen is up, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 seconds. So this is my iPhone, right? It's I think this is pretty familiar to anyone who've been using smartphone in the last decade. Now you can see on the lower right side, this is the new ControlUp app. So it's available in the App Store. Just simply browse search for ControlUp and download and install it on your mobile devices. Now, as I mentioned, whenever ControlUp picks up a new alert, you can get a real-time push notification with a badge icon and an audio signal and everything. Now, once you're logged on into the app, you will see a list of all the historical incidents we picked up. In this case, you can see some of the alerts we have recently discovered. Okay, and if I drill down, if I click on a single alert, you can actually see which metrics have caused that specific server, VSI Launcher 01, to reach the critical stress level. Right, so you can see that in this case we have quite a lot of IOPS being used, and we can see that the average login duration was pretty high. And obviously the same logic applies for other alerts like event log alerts or process-based alerts. So you can actually get a real-time notification directly to your mobile phone and drill down into the alerts to see all the details. So I think it's a pretty great addition, and hopefully for any critical incidents you guys configure, you will also configure the mobile app follow-up action. Okay, so that's about it for the live demo. We might get back to that in the Q&A section. So, Divya, before I move on to the ControlUp 5 preview, any other questions from the audience so far?
Yes, so there are a few questions coming in. So first one is Citrix UPM considered a third-party application?
So yeah. From our point of view, Citrix UPM is a third-party application. So this means that the existing profile load time column is only showing Windows profiles, right? So it's only displaying the time it took Windows to load mandatory roaming or standard profiles. We currently do not directly measure the UPM part of it.
Okay. And there's one more question, and the audience is asking, can we run customized scripts?
Yeah, okay, so regarding the scripts, the script-based action feature, it actually supports command line scripts. We support PowerShell, and we also support VB scripts. And another cool thing about that feature is that we can actually run the script-based actions, obviously on servers, but we can also run it inside sessions. So it's really, offer lots of options. I can, tell you something interesting. A customer of ours actually wanted to initiate remote assistance on some of his kiosk machines. Now the issue is that remote assistance require the user to approve the request, right? And obviously kiosk doesn't always have someone there to click on accept. So we actually use script-based actions to configure a script that will automatically click on the remote assistance UI to approve the request. Right? So this is just an example of how creative you can get with script-based actions.
Perfect. Thanks, Yoni. So there are some other questions which we've already answered individually on the chat window. So you may continue, Yoni, if there's some bit of the session that you would want to take.
Okay, yes. So we'll spend like 5-6 minutes on the ControlUp 5 roadmap, and then we'll wrap up with a few questions. So ControlUp 5 is currently planned for a June timeframe. This is one of the I think the biggest releases we're planning, and by far the two big things we're working on is, as you can see on the slide, is historical reporting. We're actually redesigning our existing historical reporting module and adding some more end user experience metrics, specifically regarding applications. So to extend the log and duration metrics and also introduce new application related end user experience metrics. The new historical reporting module planned for V5 I think is really mind-blowing, right? It's going to be super easy to use. It's going to include all the reports we heard customer asking during the last 2 or 3 years. It's going to include features like report automation, and the data retention options will be obviously varied, but we can also, save back a year or even more than that, if you will. So I think it's going to be really great. I want to share with you some quick screenshots of the planned reports so you can get an idea of what we're working on. Sorry. Okay, so I'm just showing you a few snippets from the planned historical reporting module. As mentioned, this is going to be web-based, so basically from any browser you will be able to access the new historical reporting module and create specific reports. This is one example. This is the planned application usage summary report. This would be, I think, a great addition and will enable you to quickly figure out what are the major applications being used in your environment. Obviously see some interesting data about the peak concurrent usage, how many unique users were opening each app, and obviously performance-related metrics, right? If you want to see what's the overall I/O usage of your apps, what's the average CPU consumption, etc. You can see some of the features. We can automate reports. We can obviously choose different time spans based on the ControlUp edition you have. You can do some filters based on folders or computers. Now, beyond the summary, we can actually drill down into each application, and we can both see specific application performance usage. So we can go back in time and see the RAM usage, the CPU usage, I/O usage, again, based on the time span we select. And we can also drill down from the usage perspective and see exactly which users are running an app, right? Sometimes someone will approach you guys and ask, hey, who is using ERP6, right? Or who is using the new CRM application. And this would be the report with the answers. Beyond the application usage reports, we're going to introduce some pretty interesting performance reports. And the idea behind that was to try to imitate the intuitive real-time views and enable you from an historical reporting perspective to see performance peaks and drill down using the reporting module and figure out which processes or users are causing, for example, high CPU usage on a host. Right? So you can see here in the example we can see high CPU utilization on a host, and we can actually drill down to the next report and see which VMs are actually causing the CPU usage back in time. And even more so, we can click on a specific VM, and again, we can go back in time and see a CPU peak on a specific VM and figure out which sessions or processes were causing that. Right? So if you think about it, it's kind of extending the ControlUp real-time performance views to an historical reporting standpoint. And I think this is going to be a huge hit. This is going to be great. And think about the use case where someone is saying, "Hey, I experienced slow performance last week." Right? So this is a great way to figure out what was causing that. We are going to put a lot of emphasis on user sessions. So you can see history of all user sessions. This would be a great way to figure out, if you had logo duration issues in the past, to see who are the major sessions causing performance issues, and to deal with them specifically. Right? You all know that we can have a farm with like 10,000 users, but if we have like 20 users that experience bad performance, they can, ruin the project for everyone. And this would be a great way to see who are those problematic users and approach them and fix their issues. Once we figure out a specific problematic session, we can drill down and see the details of that specific session. Right? You can see, a whole life cycle of application he was using, the state of the session. We can see the performance of the session, and we can try to figure out what was causing issues. Was it a slow logon? Was it a protocol latency issue or a basic resource consumption issue? Obviously, we'll have more reports. We'll have latency reports, so you can analyze the latency based on branches. We're going to introduce Citrix license usage report, which will show you what's the usage of the licensing, right, back in time, which I know is a very common request. And one last thing I want to share regarding reports, and you can see it actually in this report here. On some of the relevant reports, and this is a good example, in addition to showing you your actual data, we are going to expose what we call the global benchmark. Right? So if you think about it, so let's say you saw that your logon duration average is, 40 seconds. Is this good? Is this bad? The global benchmark will actually show you on the historical reporting module what is the global average based on the ControlUp community data. Right? So this is a great way to evaluate your own environment compared to the global benchmark. And we're going to introduce global benchmarks whenever it's relevant for popular application resource consumption, for logon durations, for application load time. So I think it's going to be huge, right? It's going to be really popular, hopefully. And stay tuned, right? This is planned for V5. Okay, so hopefully I managed to save a few minutes for some questions regarding what we've seen. So Divya, I'm not sure if you have anything, and if not, maybe I can, let's see, what the time right now? Okay, so we do have like 2 minutes. One thing I want to mention before we wrap up. Yeah, sorry, Divya?
No, sorry, go ahead, please.
Okay, so what I want to mention is that for those of you who are not familiar with ControlUp, one thing I haven't shown here is the ease of deployment, right? So deploying ControlUp is a super easy routine. Simply visit our website, you're downloading a single file from the website. You're actually downloading the ControlUp console. You just launch it on your management endpoint. Click on Add Computers or click on Add Hypervisor, and on the fly you can actually add Xen app servers, Xen desktop VMs, provisioning servers, web interface, storefront, XenServer host, anything. We do not require reboots. We do not require any downtime. The agent footprint is almost zero, and we actually have a section about this in the FAQ. So if you have any questions or suspicions, just go visit the FAQ and you can see all the data. But I really urge you guys to simply download ControlUp, test in your environment, and you can see all the great things we have seen here on your own Citrix projects. Right, David. So I'm good for my end, and I really want to thank you and handing it back to you.
Right. Thank you so much, Yoni. I think it was a great overview, and I must say it was a very, very impressive demo. So, and I'm sure it was useful for our audience today as well. We've answered almost all the questions in the private in the chat window where the questions were posted. So since we are running out of time, I won't call out any more questions, but in case we have missed out any of you, please write to us at citrixready@citrix.com. We have the list here who all joined us today, so we'll be sharing the presentation and the webinar recording with you, and we will also answer any unanswered questions during that time. So once again, thank you everybody for joining the session today, and thank you Yoni again for the great presentation and a very informative session. So with this, I would like to conclude this webinar. Thank you and have a good day.